The night was quiet, and the old city museum stood like a giant dark ship, full of shadows and old stories. Evan, the night guard, walked slowly down the long hallway, his boots making soft sounds on the floor. He was used to silence. He liked silence. At night the world felt simple. No crowds, no noise. Just him and the building. But tonight did not feel simple. Tonight felt watched. He could not say why. He just felt it in his chest, like a soft hand pushing, like the air was different. Lights flickered once above him, then stopped. He told himself it was nothing. Old wires, old building. He kept walking. Evan was an ordinary man. He did not think he was special. He worked hard. He was kind when he could be, and he tried not to think too much about the past. The museum job paid the rent. That was enough. Or so he believed. He checked each room like always. Dinosaur bones, paintings, old stones behind glass. Everything was quiet. Everything was normal. Then he heard it. Tap. He stopped. The sound was small, not like a door, not like a footstep. It sounded like someone very tiny was knocking on glass. He waited. The sound came again. Tap, tap, tap. He felt the hair on his arms lift. He should call his boss. He should check the cameras. Instead, he listened. The sound came from deeper inside the museum, from the part people joked about during the day. The Hall of Mirrors. He walked toward it without thinking, like the sound was pulling him forward. The hallway was long and dark. His flashlight beam shook a little, and he laughed at himself under his breath. "Get a grip," he whispered. But his hand still shook. The door to the Hall of Mirrors was always locked at night. Tonight, it was open. The keyhole glowed faintly, as if the metal held cold light. Evan pushed the door with one finger. It swung open without a sound. Inside, mirrors stood from floor to ceiling, tall and thin, old and strange. They showed no bright reflection. They seemed deeper than they should be, like dark water. Then one mirror began to glow. A soft blue light moved under its surface. Slow at first, then stronger. Evan's heart beat fast. He took one step closer. He saw his own face in the mirror, but it was blurred, stretched, almost gone. And behind where his reflection should be, something else moved. It was small. It was alive. A tiny figure pushed forward through the glowing blue, like a swimmer. Breaking a lake's surface, the glass rippled. Evan could not move. He was afraid, but he was also full of wonder, like a child seeing the sky for the first time. The figure stepped out of the mirror. It was a mini alien, no taller than his forearm. Her skin was pale silver with a soft shine, as if moonlight lived inside it. Her eyes were large and bright, full of fear and sadness and hope at the same time. She wore torn cloth around her shoulders, once beautiful, now damaged. Her hands were shaking. She looked up at him. "Please," she whispered in clear but gentle voice. "Human, I ask for sanctuary." The word felt heavy in the air. Sanctuary. Safety. Protection. Evan tried to speak, but no sound came. He looked around. No one else was there. The cameras on the wall were off. Their tiny red lights were dark. He had not turned them off. The mirror behind her rippled again. A dark shape pressed from the other side. Long fingers without shape. A face without a face. The glass bent but did not break. The tiny alien turned quickly and cried out, then ran to Evan and held his sleeve with both hands. Her grip was small but strong. "Do not let them find me," she said. The lights in the hall flickered. All power in the museum stopped at once. No hum, no machines, only deep, heavy silence. Evan felt like the world was holding its breath. He looked down at the small being before him. She was real. She was afraid. She needed help. He thought of all the times in his life when no one helped him, when people turned away because it was easier. He did not want to be like them. He knelt a little so his voice was soft, not big and loud. "Who is chasing you?" he asked. She shook her head. "Hunters," she said, "from the mirror paths. They smell fear. They follow light. They want me because I am the last of my line. If they take me, my world dies." The mirror behind her darkened like a storm cloud. A hand shape pressed out, thin and wrong. Evan felt his heart hammer. He knew one thing very clearly now. This was not a dream. This was happening. He took a slow breath. He did not know about aliens. He did not know about mirror worlds. But he knew about people who need help. He knew about someone standing alone in the dark. He nodded once. "I will help you," he said. The air turned cold. The mirrors around them shivered. Something on the other side heard his promise. And it was coming. Evan held the tiny alien close to his chest as he left the Hall of Mirrors. The museum hallways felt longer than before, like they were stretching. Every glass case, every polished surface, every picture frame looked like an open eye watching him. He walked fast but quiet, trying not to scare her more. Her small hands gripped his shirt, and he could feel her shaking. The security office was small but safe. One desk, many screens, a coffee cup from hours ago. He closed the door, locked it, and pulled the curtains down over the small window. The room felt like an island in the dark sea of the museum. He placed her gently on the desk. She stood slowly, trying to look brave, even though she was tired and afraid. Up close, Evan could see more details. Her hair was soft and white, like snow. Dust. Tiny silver lines glowed under her skin, like rivers of light. Her eyes were wide and deep, like she carried stars inside them. "My name is Evan," he said softly, pointing to himself. She nodded. "I am Leary." The name sounded like wind through glass. He gave her a small piece of cloth to wrap around herself better. She thanked him with a polite little bow, like she came from a place where manners were important. Even when the world was falling apart, Evan turned to the security screens, but they were all black. Every camera in the museum had gone dead at the same time. He had worked here for years. That had never happened. Power outage? System crash? Or something else? He already knew the answer, something else. He sat down slowly. "What were those things?" he asked. "The shapes in the mirror." Leary looked toward the small metal drawer on the desk, and even that reflective surface made her tense. She hugged herself and took a breath. Her voice was small but clear when she spoke. "They are hunters," she said. "They come from the places between reflections. You humans see only your faces in mirrors. We see roads." Evan listened carefully. Every word sounded strange but also true, like puzzle pieces falling into place. "My people live in the mirror paths," she continued. "We walk between worlds. We do not hurt. We do not fight. We watch and learn. That was our way." She paused. Her voice broke. "Now we run." Evan's chest tightened. "Why are they after you?" She looked down at her tiny feet, shining faintly against the wood of the desk. "Because I am the last of my house," she said. "My parents, my teachers, my guards, all gone. I escaped through the last safe mirror. It brought me here." She lifted her eyes to his. "To humans." He blinked. "Why humans?" She hesitated, as if choosing her words with great care. "Because humans are strange," she said. "You are loud and gentle. You make war and music. You destroy and you heal. In our old stories, humans were called the unpredictable ones. The hunters fear what they cannot predict." Evan almost laughed, but there was no humor in him right now. "We're just people," he said. She shook her head. "No, you are more. You can close mirror roads just by standing before them. The hunters cannot pass a mirror that a human guards with true intent. That is why I asked for sanctuary, not from law. From you. Those words settled into him, slowly, heavy but warm. He looked at the blank screens again. They turned off the power, he said. They do not need power, she replied. They use fear. They eat light. They will search every mirror in this place. They will whisper my name. They will whisper yours too. They already know you helped. M.E. As if answering her words, a faint sound echoed down the hallway. Scratch. 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 Something dragging along glass. Evan's throat went dry. He walked to the door and listened. The sound came from the restroom mirrors, then from the exhibit cases, then from the water of a dark aquarium down the hall. It was everywhere. It was walking through reflections like shoes on wet floors. They will not stop, Leary said softly. They do not get tired. They do not forgive. They will offer you things. Power, riches, lost people back. All lies made of shadow. They only want me. Evan turned back to her. Then they can't have you. He did not shout. He did not make a speech. He just said it like a simple fact, the same way he would say, the sun rises or coffee is hot, but Leary's eyes filled with light when she heard it. You would risk yourself? She whispered. He shrugged, almost shy. Someone has to stand between them and you, he said. Tonight it's me. Something changed then. The silver lines under her skin glowed brighter. The air felt warmer. A soft wind that wasn't there brushed his face. Leary put her hand on her heart. My people draw strength from trust, she said, from kindness freely given. Your promise gives me power. The scratching sounds grew louder, like many fingernails across 1,000 mirrors. A low, voiceless murmur filled the hallways. Evan could feel the presence pressing in from every direction, trying to find cracks in their courage. He stood in front of the office mirror and covered it with his jacket. The museum was now a different place. It no longer felt like a building with walls and doors. It felt alive, like a giant creature made of glass and quiet breath. Every reflective surface seemed to listen. Every dark window seemed to wait. Evan could feel it, the same way people feel a storm coming, even before the first drop of rain. Something had entered the museum. Not with feet, not with sound, but through reflections. He stood still and listened. At first there was nothing. Then it began. Tap, scratch, whisper. The sounds slid through the air, soft but everywhere at once. They came from mirrors, picture frames, shiny floors, even the metal on the door handle. It was like the building itself was speaking in a language of glass. Leary stood on the desk, her eyes wide, her silver veins glowing faintly under her skin. She did not cry. She did not scream. She just watched the room like someone who knew very well how bad things could get. They are here, she said quietly. Evan nodded. He believed it without question now. The whispering grew clearer, as if hundreds of thin mouths spoke all at once from the other side of the glass. They did not speak full words. They shaped pieces of sounds. But slowly, those pieces came together into something that made sense. Van. Evan felt cold run down his back like ice water. They know your name, Leary said. He tried to stay calm. How? Names leave marks, she replied. Thoughts leave light. When you chose to help me, they saw you. You stand in their way now. They do not like walls they cannot break. The whispering changed. It became sweet, warm, almost kind. Evan, the glass sighed. We can help you. He did not answer. The voices moved through the museum, touching every reflection like fingers on many piano keys. We know your wishes, Evan. We know your old pain. The screens on the desk flickered for 1 second, then turned back to black. A shape floated across them like smoke trapped in water. Evan stared, jaw tight. The voice went on, smooth as oil. You are alone most nights. You think no one sees you. We can give you respect. We can give you money. We can undo what? Hurt you. Leary shook her head sharply. Do not listen, she said. They offer dreams made of dust. The whisper turned sharp for an instant, like broken glass. Give us the small one, it said, and you will never feel small again. Evan almost laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh someone makes when the world finally shows its real face. You're wasting your time. He said into the room, find someone else to scare. Silence fell. Then the mirrors began to move, not much, not like walking. Just bending like soft metal. Reflections slid wrong, stretching and twisting. From inside one tall mirror, something pushed forward. Not fully, just enough for Evan to understand why Leary had run. The thing had height without shape, arms without bones, hands that ended in long smooth points. Where a face should be, there was only a hollow place that drank in light instead of reflecting it. It leaned against the glass like someone leaning against a window in the rain. It could not cross. Leary's voice was barely a breath. You see now, there were more. Another in the small mirror by the door. Another in the glass of a framed map. Another in the cold shine of the microwave in the break room down the hall. Everywhere he looked, something waited just beneath the surface. They were surrounded. One of the hunters pressed its blank face closer to the mirror. The glass bowed like water. Its voice did not come from a mouth. It came from every mirror. At once, you are one man, it said. We are many roads. Evan swallowed. Maybe, he said, but I'm standing in yours. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Then the hunters tested him. The lights died again, deeper this time. Even the emergency exit signs went dark. The room filled with darkness so thick it felt like cloth pressed over the eyes. Evan could not see Leary anymore. He could only feel her tiny hand grab his finger. The hunters began to tap. Fast now, hundreds of small, eager taps. They were trying to crack courage like glass. Images rose in Evan's mind, not from memory, but pushed inside by the mirrors. Times he had failed, times he felt useless. Doors closed in his face. Quiet rooms where no one waited for him. The hunters fed those images back to him, sharper. Each time trying to hollow him out. Leary's voice broke through them. Look at me. He turned his head even though he still could not see. Humans are not strong because they do not fear, she said. Humans are strong because they fear and still stay. A small light began to glow. It came from her. Silver lines under her skin burned brighter, bright as moonlight on water. The dark pulled back from her like it hated the glow. The hunters hissed without sound. Evan squeezed her tiny hand, and the strangest calm came over him. Not because he was safe. He knew he wasn't, but because he had chosen, and choices have power. The leader pushed closest now, its shadow taller than the mirror that held it. The glass around its form cracked like thin ice. Last chance, the many voices said together. Give her, leave, forget. Evan stood straighter, shoulders set, eyes steady on the dark shape. No, he said simply. Not loud, not dramatic, just true. The hunters recoiled. Leary's glow spread wider, lighting the office like a small dawn. For the first time, Evan saw fear inside the mirror shadows. Not human fear. Older, colder fear. Fear of something new. A human who would not step aside. The air inside the security office felt charged now, like the air before lightning touches the ground. The glow from Leary's small body was no longer faint. It spread slowly across the desk, then across the walls, soft and silver, like moonlight pouring through underwater glass. Shadows curled away from it, as if the light itself had weight. Evan had never seen anything like it. He watched as tiny symbols, round and flowing, appeared and disappeared along her arms, like writing made of light that only existed for a second, and then slipped back beneath her skin. Her breathing slowed. Her fear softened. She stood straighter, no longer just a frightened childlike being, but something older, something royal. "This is new," he whispered. Lili nodded, eyes shining, voice trembling but steady. "It is not new," she said. "It is forgotten. My people turned from power to peace. We believed it would protect us. We forgot that peace without guardians is fragile." She looked at him with deep sadness. "And so the hunters came." The building answered with a low ripple through the glass. The whispering outside had changed. It no longer begged or tempted. It circled. It waited. It was the sound of predators who had realized their prey had teeth. "They feel it," Leary said. "They feel that I am no longer only fleeing." Evan tried to smile. "Good," he said. "Let them feel something for a change." The glow grew brighter, not harsh like sunlight, but soft and patient, the kind of light that stays even after the fire dies. It filled every corner of the office, leaving no place for shadows to anchor. The mirror on the wall darkened like ink poured into water, and the hunter inside it pulled back, its long knot hands snapping away from the glass. "What are you doing?" Evan asked. "I am remembering," she said simply. She closed her eyes, and the room fell quiet except for the soft hum of her light. Evan saw flashes not with his eyes, but inside his mind. Tall mirrored cities that floated like soap bubbles. Gentle beings moving through reflections as easily as stepping across puddles. Laughter made of music. Then fire, cracks, dark figures. Pressing into those bright worlds like stains spreading through cloth. Leary shuddered, and the light pulsed. "What happens if you remember too much?" Evan asked softly. She opened her eyes again. They were different now, deeper. Not older in years, but older in knowing. "Then I become what I am meant to be," she said. "A keeper of paths. A guardian. Light needs a will." Outside, the tapping stopped. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then the hunter struck. Mirrors all throughout the museum exploded with motion. Not breaking, not shattering, moving. Reflections twisted into sharp spirals, like whirlpools pulling at the world. Dark shapes slammed against the barriers again and again, trying to push through the thin wall between their realm and this one. One face pressed hard against the office mirror and stayed there. Hollow eyes stared at Evan, not with sight, but with hunger. It spoke without sound. "She cannot hold all paths." The whisper crawled through his mind. "She is small. She is tired. Step aside, human. Let the roads break. This world will be only the first." Evan stepped between Leary and the mirror, even though he knew the mirror being did not really need to see to strike. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He just moved, as natural as breathing. "If she falls," he said quietly, "then I fall with her." Leary gasped very softly behind him. Something changed again. Light flowed from her like water poured into a shape. It didn't just fill the room now. It listened. It answered him. It wrapped around him without burning, warm and steady. For a strange, beautiful moment, Evan felt taller than he was, heavier than he was, like he had roots in the floor and sky in his chest. "You do not draw power from light," Leary whispered. "Light draws power from you." The hunters recoiled as if struck. They did not understand this dot in their world. Strength came from cold, from taking, from hollowing. They did not understand a species that grew stronger by standing beside someone small. They had never seen courage become fuel. The largest shadow leaned forward, stretching across 5 mirrors at once. Cracks traced across the glass like spiderwebs made of night. The building itself groaned. "They will break the frames," Leary said. "If they do, the paths will spill. Not only here, everywhere there is glass." Evan glanced around the office. Coffee pot, computer screen, door window. His own phone in his pocket. It hit him all at once how thin the world really was, how many little mirrors humans carried every day without thinking. "What do you need?" he asked. Leary looked at him like someone who had wished for hope and then found it standing there in an old security jacket. "I need belief," she said. "Not in me, in your choice. Say it again." He knew what she meant. He didn't shout. He didn't pose like a hero in a movie. He just said it with simple truth. The strongest kind there is. I will not give you to them. Light roared without sound. It burst from Leary and from the space. Between his words, filling the room, then the hall, then the whole museum. Every mirror turned white, then blank, then still. The hunters screamed without mouths and vanished back into their dark roads. But Evan understood something as the glow slowly dimmed. They were not gone. They had only learned something new about humans, and they would come back with that knowledge. The museum no longer shook, but it did not feel calm. It felt like a battlefield after the first wave quiet, but only because everything was waiting for the next strike. Dust floated in the air. A few hairline cracks marked the edges of mirrors in the hallway, like thin white scars. The lights flickered once, then stayed on, weak and tired, like they had been running too long. Evan opened the office door slowly. The hallway stretched out before him, full of glass cases, metal rails, polished floors, thousands of small reflections. He had never seen so many mirrors before. He had walked past them every night and never noticed how many doors they could be. Now he noticed everything. He turned back to Leary. She sat on his shoulder now, light as a leaf, small hands gently holding the collar of his jacket. She looked stronger, but there was still a shadow of sadness in her eyes. Power had returned to her, yes, but home had not. Will they stop? Evan asked. She shook her head. No, hunters do not understand stopping. They only understand until. She looked out across the hall. They will come until I am taken, or until the roads are sealed. He frowned. Sealed? You mean closed forever? Yes, she said softly. No more mirror paths, no more crossings. My people would be trapped wherever they are. Those who escaped would never return. Those left behind would never be found. The decision tasted heavy in the air. Evan understood then. This wasn't just a chase. This was a choice that could end a world. He walked slowly through the hall of mirrors again, this time not as someone curious or afraid, but as someone responsible. Each mirror showed him shapes at the edge, faint shadows pacing just under the surface, like sharks circling beneath ice. I spoke again, her voice quiet and careful. We never believed humans should be part of our roads. You break patterns. You do not follow rules of fear. Hunters cannot predict you. That is why I came. That is why they hate you. Evan gave a small smile. Humans have been hated for worse reasons. They reached the center of the hall. Here, the largest mirror towered above all the others, tall as a two-story house, framed in black wood carved with symbols that made Evan's eyes ache if he looked too long. This was the mirror she had stepped out of. Blue light slept faintly inside its depths, like a heartbeat buried under glass. That mirror rippled, not with attackers this time. With worlds. Evan saw flashes, roads made of light, bending and turning, crossing through endless reflections. Doors that were not doors. Corridors inside the shine of every lake, every window, every polished blade. And through those roads, beings like Leary once walked freely, laughing into silence. Now those roads were full of shadows. Leary placed her palm against his neck, as if feeling his pulse gave her courage. If I seal the roads, she said, the hunters will be locked away, but so will all who are lost. If I do not seal them, they will hunt until no light remains. My world cannot fight. We forgot how. Evan stared at the mirror. He thought about choices. He thought about how humans often had to pick between two bad doors and walk anyway. What happens to you? He asked. If I seal the roads, she said, I will stay in your world. My strength will burn. I will be smaller maybe, but alive if I do not. She looked at the mirror, and her voice went flat. They will catch me, and then nothing else will matter. The hunters felt the moment. They pressed closer. Dozens of hollow faces surfaced across the mirror walls, some large, some barely the size of his hand, all watching. The whispers started again, not tempting this time, not angry. Just cold. Choose. 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 Evan suddenly realized something simple and bright. She had been running alone. No one else had said they would choose with her. He knelt slightly so they were closer in height, even though she was tiny and he was tall. You don't choose alone anymore, he said. If you seal them, you won't be trapped. You'll be here, with me, and I don't run. Leary's eyes filled, not with fear this time, but with something warmer relief. No one had promised her that before. Not power. Not victory. Just not being alone. The glow rose from her skin again, but different now, no longer sharp and frightened, but steady and soft, like a lantern held in careful hands. Symbols of light flowed across the great mirror, then across every mirror in the hall, then across the tiny reflections in the glass of display cases. The hunters lunged. They slammed into the glass from the other side with all their strength. The mirrors shook and bent. Cracks spidered out like lightning strikes. The largest shadow stretched across 5 reflections at once, a storm of darkness pressing hard enough to make the frames groan. Evan stood in front of the great mirror, not because he thought his body could stop anything, but because he knew his choice could. He spoke without shouting. Seal them. The word echoed. Not in the air. In the mirrors. Leary used both hands. Light flared through the hall, bright but not blinding, warm but not burning. The glass did not shatter, it froze. Ripples turned to stone. Roads turned to walls. The hunters screamed with no mouths as the paths closed, one by one. And then silence. Real silence. The mirrors went still. The light faded. Leary slumped onto his shoulder, exhausted but alive. It is done, she whispered. Silence lived in the museum. Now the deep kind of silence that comes after a storm has broken itself against the earth. The mirrors no longer pulsed or whispered. They were only mirrors again, cold glass, empty reflections, nothing more. Even the shadows on the floor seemed ordinary. But Evan knew better. Battles don't always leave smoke and fire. Sometimes they leave only breathing. He slowly sat down on a bench in the hall of mirrors, careful not to jostle Leary. She was small and light in his hands, but she felt heavier than before, not in body, but in meaning. Her glow had dimmed the softest silver, like moonlight just before dawn. Her eyes fluttered open. You stayed, she whispered. Of course, he said, like there was never any other answer. Are you okay? She nodded, though the nod was tired. The roads are sealed. No one can cross now. Hunters are trapped in their own dark. My people who are already in your world will stay. My people still lost in the paths will remain lost. Her voice shook a little at the last words, but she did not cry. Evan let the truth settle. So the war is over? He asked. She shook her head slowly. Wars end with noise. This ended with closing doors. It is quieter than war, but it is an ending. He looked around the hall. Broken frames. Hairline cracks like white veins. Everything looked almost normal, again almost. It felt like a place that had seen something sacred and would never forget it, even if no one believed the story. Then the lights came back fully. Bright, ordinary, yellow museum lights. Power hummed through the building again. Machines woke. Cameras blinked their tiny red eyes. A cleaner's cart rolled somewhere on the other side of the building and squeaked, like nothing strange had ever happened. The world had returned, but it wasn't the same world. Leary climbed weakly from his hand onto his shoulder again. She sat. They're like a very small queen on a very old throne. Your world is loud, she said softly, and a faint smile curved her mouth. "But it is warm," Evan chuckled under his breath. "That's a good way to put it." He walked with her through the museum one last time. They passed the dinosaur bones, the old coins, the tall columns, and the sleeping statues. Each reflection he saw now was only his own face, tired, human, simple. No watchers behind the glass. No roads. But he felt something else instead. Ownership. Responsibility. Like he had been handed keys to a house he already lived in. Leary pointed suddenly. "There," she said. He followed her finger and saw only a simple mirror at the end of a hallway, nothing glowing, nothing moving, but he understood. That was the last door she had used, and now it was nothing but silver and glass. She raised her hand toward it, not to open it, just to say goodbye. "I thought my life would be in the roads," she whispered. "I thought all stories were written in mirrors, but I was wrong. Some stories are written in people." She looked at him, in humans. Evan cleared his throat when his voice tried to break. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. "That's what matters now." She nodded, and for the first time since he met her, the light in her eyes was not fear or pain or duty. It was simple peace. Then the museum alarm chirped. The morning shift was arriving. The day guard would walk in soon. The staff would open doors. Visitors would come. People would buy tickets, take photos, and no one would ever know that worlds had almost spilled through the glass that night. Evan looked down at Leary and raised one eyebrow. You don't exactly fit the employee handbook." She laughed, a tiny crystal sound. "I will learn to hide," she said. "I am small. Your world is big. It has many pockets." He slipped her gently into the inner pocket of his jacket. Only a faint warmth remained there against his chest, like he was carrying a little piece of starlight. She curled up, trusting him more than she trusted mirrors. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Home," he said. He had not said that word out loud in years, not like that, not with weight. He had an apartment, a couch, a window that looked out over a noisy street, that was all. But suddenly those small things felt like the beginning of something that mattered. On the way out, he paused one last time and looked back at the hall of mirrors. If anyone else looked inside, they would only see their own face looking back. He saw something else. He saw a quiet human night guard who had stood between darkness and someone small and frightened. He saw that this mattered more than titles, more than money, more than being important. Humans, he realized, did not need to walk mirror roads to be incredible. They only needed to keep their promises. Outside, dawn was breaking, soft and gold, not silver like mirror light, but real and warm. Evan stepped into it with Leary resting against his heart, and the new day felt like the start of a story that no mirror had ever predicted. The city morning was loud, alive, and absolutely unlike the quiet world of mirrors. Cars moved like bright insects. People hurried with coffee cups and busy faces. Dogs barked. A bus sighed to a stop and groaned away again. All of it mixed into one great human sound. Evan walked through it with his jacket zipped halfway, one hand resting lightly over his inside pocket. Over Leary, she peeked out through the small space. Between the zipper teeth, wide eyes drinking in everything. To her, every sight was new. The steam rising from a food cart looked like a ghost. A traffic light blinking red, yellow, green looked like a tower giving orders to the sky. A child laughing on the sidewalk made her smile without meaning to. "Your world is noisy," she whispered. "Noise with feeling. That's city life," Evan said. "Messy, loud, real." He unlocked the door to his apartment building. A tall brick place that had seen better paint but still stood strong. Stairs creaked in greeting under his boots. On the third floor, a neighbor's TV played too loud through the wall. Someone's dinner already smelled like too much garlic. The hallway light buzzed. Home. He opened his own door. It was small and simple. A couch, a table, a plant trying its best near the window, a bookshelf with more empty space than books. It did not look like a place where worlds had almost collided. Leary climbed out of his pocket and onto the table. To her, it was a wide field. She touched everything with careful hands, the smooth bowl, the rough book cover, the cool glass of the window. She looked down at the street below and gasped softly as people became small moving dots. "Do they know?" she asked. "Lenny of." "Them? What almost happened?" Evan shook his head. "No, and maybe that's good. People already worry about enough." She thought about that for a moment, then nodded. "In my world, we believe danger must always be seen. Perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps some danger should just be stopped quietly." His old cat-in-orange, slow-moving creature named Dusty jumped up on the couch, stopped, and stared at Leary. Leary stared back. They shared a long, serious moment. Then Dusty blinked once and curled up. Deciding she was not a threat but maybe an odd dream, Leary giggled. "I like your guardian beast," she sighed. "He likes naps and chicken," Evan replied. "He's very powerful." She walked across the back of the couch like a tightrope walker on a stage. She slipped once, then caught herself, laughing again. Joy looked strange and beautiful on her after so much fear. The silver lines under her skin glowed faintly, not from power this time, but from being happy. He made tea. It was a small thing, but it mattered. Steam curled in the air, and Leary watched it like magic. He poured a drop for her into a tiny bottle cap. She cupped it with both hands and sipped slowly, eyes shining. "So," he said, sitting down, "what does life look like now?" She thought. She did not rush the answer. "I learn," she said at last. "I learn human things. Your food, your stories, your jokes, your music. I learn to live small without being less. I watch windows and do not walk through them. And I remember my people," she added softly, "not with sadness only. With honor," he nodded. "And me?" She tilted her head, reading him the way she read mirrors once. "You live," she said simply, "not only at night, not only in quiet halls. You do not hide in your own past anymore. You protected me, but you also woke yourself." He looked at his hands. She was right. He had walked through life like a ghost for years, working, sleeping, repeating. Last night he had stood between worlds and said no, not loudly, not heroically, just honestly. Somehow that had changed everything inside him. Leary stepped onto his palm and sat there, small feet swinging over the edge like a child on a dock over water. "Among my people," she said, "there's a title for one who guards light, not because it is easy, but because someone must. We call them keepers at the edge." She touched his thumb gently. "You are that now." He smiled, not big, not bright, quietly, the way someone smiles when a truth fits exactly where it belongs. Outside, life went on. A siren wailed in the distance. Someone laughed in the hallway. A cloud passed slowly across the sun, then moved on. Somewhere, mirrors hung in bathrooms and stores and tall buildings. Harmless now, just glass that showed faces and gave back light. But in places between worlds, rumors already traveled. They told of hunters who were stopped, of bright roads sealed by choice, of a tiny mirror being who survived, and of a human ordinary job, ordinary life who stood in the way of darkness and did not step aside. Some stories travel faster than roads. Some legends do not need mirrors. And as Evan leaned back on the couch with Leary curled like a silver ember near his shoulder and Dusty purring like a quiet machine at his feet, he did not think of himself as a legend. He thought of dinner plans, of new books, of tomorrow. That was the most human thing of all.